Hi, I'm Tessa, a veteran educator working in the field of special education.
And I'm Kim, mom of 2 autistic boys and a late diagnosed autistic person myself.
And welcome to Totally Over the Spectrum, where we dive into embracing autism through understanding and support. Welcome to episode 30, and this episode we're going to be discussing autism respite and is it worth it? So in our previous episode, we said we were going to be discussing this as it's important for caregivers to replenish their energy. And as always, please, if you have a comment or would like to share some information with us, stories, please do so. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Good job. All right. I have mixed feelings about respite care.
Okay.
So let's start with a definition.
You've had the best, so
right. It's true.
There you go.
So
of course,
it's all
going to have
from there. I'd like to start off with a definition because respite's a weird word, and especially if you're not familiar with it, you're like, "What's that?"
Yes.
So respite is basically taking a break. So respite services provide temporary care of an autistic individual to give a break to caregivers.
Yes, and we're talking specifically more the primary caregivers of these, of people with autism, right? So it's a lot, right? Especially your level 3s, you're always on, right? And you personally can relate to that.
Hey, I'm a single parent. I've got 2 kids, both autistic. I'm autistic. It's a lot. So, but still, I have reservations about respite care. Anyway, there are 2 different kinds of respite. So you can have in-home respite. So a respite worker will come to the home to care for the autistic individual, or you have out-of-home respite, right? And that means that the autistic individual attends a respite program or a camp or a facility. And that could include overnight or just daytime.
Yeah, absolutely, that does. And I think what we need to do is just break down what is the best way to go about researching this and how to vet people and programs that is best suited for your child's needs.
Yeah, every autistic person is different. Every home situation is different, right? So all the needs are going to be very specific to the family. For me, my youngest, Peter, is level 3. He's non-speaking. So he has high support needs. And I couldn't send my non-speaking child to a respite facility. I couldn't do it. There are a lot of stories out there of vulnerable children or even adults being mistreated. And that's not to say always by the caregivers, but sometimes by the other participants in the program, right? Because sometimes we have some big behaviors. And that was enough for me to say, nope, not doing it.
Okay. And on the flip side, there is the positive where people have had, come back with a lot of positive information and feedback to say, they wish they had started it earlier because, these opportunities have allowed their children to, make connections and, build relationships outside of their primary, environment.
Yeah. I mean, I put both my kids in day programs at the local community center, right? Like day camps. And the results are kind of mixed. So Alex is level 1, so he has lower support needs, and he is generally unimpressed with running around and doing stuff all day. So it really wasn't for him. And with Peter, they lost him. They lost him one day. Right? Peter is a runner, right? We've talked about elopement in a previous episode, which I didn't write down. So I'll put a link to it anyway. So basically, Peter was in an all-day program at a local community center, and he had a one-on-one support worker who was lovely, did a really great job. She was an educational assistant during the school year, and during the summer, she did this one-on-one support work. And I had taken Alex to the community center for swimming lessons. So it was an older facility, so you were able to sit inside the room with the swimming pool. They had a little sectioned off area with benches that caregivers could watch their kids swimming. So I was sitting there, Alex was in the pool, he was swimming, and Peter comes running into the pool room and he's unattended, and he stops and he does like this really happy little dance, and then he took off to run around the pool. And there are doors to go outside, and no one came to get him. So I got up off the bench and I went over and I got him, and he's like, "Oh, you're here." I'm like, "Yeah, sorry to ruin your day." And I took him out into the hallway, and there was a young woman who was supporting some adults with disabilities, and I didn't see his one-on-one worker. So the office is within sight, and it was all windows, so I could see that there were 3 managers in the office. So I walked over to the office and I said what had happened, and I wanted to be elevated and angry and all the things, but I did not want to upset the adults with disabilities who were in that area, right? So I didn't release that because I didn't think that was fair. So they just stared at me. One of them got on their phone right away. I don't know who she was calling. And they just said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. We'll look into it." And that's all they said. I was trying to impress upon them without yelling that this could have been catastrophic. He didn't have to go towards the pool. He could have gone outside. He could have been anywhere, right? He was in his swimwear. He was getting ready to go swimming. So he did go into that area, but there was no one with him. And while I was standing there, his one-on-one worker came out of the bathroom. She had been changing herself. She got him changed and went to get herself changed. And she had left him with the person who was supervising the adults, who I found out later was the program supervisor. And she was told to watch Peter while his support worker got changed, and she just didn't. She just didn't do it. So I didn't send him back. I was like, "Oh, I'm done, thank you." And all they could say to me when they got through all of the what happened and we'll look into it and all of that was, "Oh, she'll be spoken to." Oh, that's fantastic. Peter won't be back.
That's unfortunate, that circumstances like that do arise. But, that, but that, excuse me, is why we're going to stress upon doing your due diligence and vetting.
Right. So the first thing I wanted to get into is if you're going to do respite care, there's funding available. So we have all of our funding information available on our website. I always put a link to our website in the description. We talk about funding sort of more in depth in episode 7. So I will put a link to that at the end of the video. And one of the fundings that you can get is called Special Services at Home. And this is for anybody under 18. You can use that for respite care. When you're over 18, you can use passport funding, which is part of Disability Services Ontario. It has nothing to do with passports. That's just what they call it. And that can be used for respite care. So all the details of that on our website. I have links on there and everything to make that really accessible for people.
Now, a lot of times people ask, is respite covered under OHIP? And the short and sweet answer to that is no.
And OHIP is our Ontario Health Insurance Program.
Yes.
Like specific to Ontario.
Yeah. So it is not covered under that. I'm so sorry for that. I think it's a necessary service and it should be. But unfortunately, it's not. The way they go about it is providing, like you said, the SSAH funding, which is the Special Services at Home funding in order for you to access that respite.
Like that funding is not a lot of money.
No, it is not.
So I felt that it would be better put to use spending it on the activities for the kids and sensory items for the kids and not spending it on respite care for me, basically. So I did not want to spend that little bit of money that we got on respite. It just didn't seem like a cost benefit thing for me. And the amount of work that would have to go into it, like just the idea that I would have to find a person, interview them, teach them all the things about my kids. It sounds like a lot of work. And then I would have to trust that that person will actually take care of them. I'd be so anxious that it wouldn't even be worth it for me. And to go through all of that work for what? A few hours? Like it just, for me, it wasn't worth it. But if you choose to use respite services. Like I said, every family situation is different. Some people really need the break. Where do you start finding services?
Okay. Of course, the internet is you can certainly use that to your advantage. to narrow down your searches. Once you've narrowed down your searches, that's when the true essence of work begins, right? There are facilities such as community living, and Carrie's Place is the two places that I've had experience with in taking previous students over there. So not that we're endorsing any of them, but these are the first two that come to mind that are within the Halton region area.
Well, they're with Carrie's Places throughout Canada.
Well, yeah, for us discussing where we are, the one that I've had
Halton,
experience.
Peel, Toronto. Yeah. We're in Southern Ontario, so we look, we know sort of more of the services available within Southern Ontario, but Carrie's Place is throughout Canada. And community living is specific to your area. Like every area will have its own community living. Yeah. Most local autism organizations will have a list of providers or be able to point you in the right direction. You just have to sort of Google autism providers near me. And also Special Services at Home also has a list of respite care providers. The thing is, you still have to vet them. You still, like, they do not endorse them. They just say, here is a list, and you still have to check them out and make sure that they're good, like they're going to be a good provider. So that brings us to my next point, which I thought was really important, and it's what should you be looking for in a respite provider?
Okay. So give me your top concerns in what criterias you would like to have this particular person meet in order for you to feel safe and secure in trusting your child with them.
The first, and I think the most important thing, is you have to know the specific needs of the autistic person. If you don't know their specific needs, you can't translate that for a respite care worker. So that means you have to know their sensory sensitivities, you have to know what activities they enjoy or they really do not enjoy, any kind of behavioral issues. And you can't withhold information from your respite care worker. So if it is possible that one of the behavior issues that your child or the autistic individual does, like some people smear poop. Okay, that is, people don't talk about it, but that happens, right?
Yep.
So if you're embarrassed or you don't want to talk about it, or you think, oh well, that I'm not going to find a provider if I tell them that information because they're not going to want to take it on. That is unfair to both your child and the respite worker.
Yeah,
they need to know.
Yeah, I'm so glad you did that, because I would rather take on a case having all of the information so that I am best able to pick, activities that are best suited for that particular child and be prepared in order to deal with situations such as, fecal smearing. It is, it's not that I'm not going to take on a case. It's that I am going to come prepared to deal with that circumstance should it arise.
Yeah. And the thing is too, if someone doesn't want to take it on because of that, they're not for you. That's not a good fit.
Yep. Yep.
And it might be a little harder to find someone, but it's going to pay off in the long run.
It is. And to me, blindsiding me when I've taken on the case and I find this out, I'm not apt to going to want to come back, because I'm going to go, what else are they withholding from me?
Yeah.
Right? Transparency is crucial in finding a great pairing.
Yeah. So you also need to know the level of support that the individual requires or may require if they become dysregulated. Right? All of that information is going to help you know exactly what you're looking for in a person and help that respite worker understand how to effectively support the individual.
Yeah. And make sure that the person that you're looking at has had the training, has had the appropriate training. Some service providers do ensure that their staff are trained, and others do not. Pretty much everybody requires a vulnerable sector clearance from the police. But apart from that, there are agencies that do not require any other training except that.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. So the second point that I have is to decide what option best suits your needs. And so you can have independent respite workers, like you were saying. So that means you can hire someone directly without going through an organization. And you would be responsible for doing those background checks, right? And assessing their qualifications. And don't take their word for it, you know?
Yep, I agree. Don't ask for proof.
Exactly that. So, and if you go through an organization, right? So lots of organizations out there who provide respite care, they would be responsible, like you said, for providing qualified workers. And they would also be responsible for doing the background checks and the training. So that might be a better fit if you don't want to go through that hassle of doing all of those checks yourself.
So when engaging with with a company or a service provider, ask them what specific training that they provide for their staff, because that's going to be crucial in pairing with your child. You know, do they have a extensive questionnaire in which that you get to provide and relate all of the information about your child and your child's specific needs? So you've got to look, you know, you don't want to go into an organization that has a very generic form that you fill out just with the name, date of birth, you know, any medical incidents. No, you want to have a questionnaire that is detailed, where it provides you with the opportunity to express your child's specific needs and strategies that work specifically for your child during a regulated state and a deregulated state. So look for the ones that do put in require a lot more effort on your end in order to make sure that they have a good pairing or a good matching.
The other option is family and friends, right? So that happens to be the only respite avenue that I'm comfortable with. Not everybody has this as an option. And you can use your special services at home funding to pay a family member, as long as you can't pay yourself, but you can pay another family member. You were saying something and I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, you keep saying child, but really you can get respite care for adults as well.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
So I know that we often think, because you work with kids mostly, that we think child, but this can be for any age. It's just the special services at home funding is for children,
yes,
and the passport funding, like I said, is for adults.
Yeah. So in reference to that, it's usually 18 is the cutoff date for those two, between those two fundings where they transition.
My next point is an interview, right? So have an in-person interview, definitely for an independent respite worker. This is a job. You're hiring a person to do a job. You're the employer. You need to do an in-person interview. And in-person would be really important I would want to observe the person with my kids to see how they interact, right? And I would want to see if my kids feel comfortable around them, or if I think that within, a period of time, they might become comfortable around them. Mm-hmm. You could get them to elaborate on their experience and their skills. I know you can get most of that from a resume, but when people talk about it, you get a better sense of whether they actually know their stuff or they're just throwing some words out there on a resume to get the job. Yeah.
And also, if you have a child or an adult, that requires physical assistance in whether they are still diapered, make sure that person is capable of doing that, and have them demonstrate that skill to you. The physical aspect of that is required. Are they able to do a single lift or transfer successfully from, for example, from a bed to a wheelchair, or from a wheelchair to a Riften chair, or to a bed? So make sure that they are able to demonstrate those skills to you effectively, so that you know that your child is going to be safe.
The last thing I would do is spend some of that interview time providing possible scenarios to the person and asking them how they would handle it.
Yeah, and their spontaneous response is going to give you an idea of exactly what type of experience that they're bringing to the table. Now, I'm not going to say that somebody with less experience is not going to be, not suited for the job, because sometimes it does take personality, right? A person who's got all the experience in the world is not going to click personality-wise with the person that they're providing that care for. And that is an extremely important aspect of getting, transferring that trust. Because if your child or your, specific person does not click with them, it doesn't matter. It's just not going to work. They're going to be constantly butting heads, and it's not going to be enjoyable for either party.
I had another point. I lost it. What was it? It'll come back to me. The other part of this would be to check this person's references, right? So have references and see what they have to say about the person's abilities and reliability, right? And the other part of that I remembered. Sometimes it's not always about experience, but about a willingness to learn. So the person might say, I'm not quite sure how to handle that situation. Like, I have a couple of thoughts. What would you suggest how would you like me to handle that particular situation? And a willingness to learn is sometimes more important to me than experience, because I don't want someone coming in and going, I know all about it. I know how to do it. You don't need to tell me anything. I've got this. No, I don't like it. I don't like that. I don't like that attitude. I don't like anything about it, because every single person is different. Every autistic person is different. All of their needs are different, right? So experience is helpful because you're like, oh, I've seen this before. I've got this box of tools I can use for these certain situations, but you still have to be able to expand it.
Always. And that is a great approach in order to use when you're vetting somebody. I agree with you.
Yeah. And the last one I have would be open communication. And we sort of touched on this. So being upfront, being transparent, but I would make sure that I tell them that things are not always going to go smoothly.
Yeah, and I think that's where we can provide information on some of the obstacles that I overcame with Peter, because I was saying, I've often come to you and I've said, hey, today was not a good day. I did A, B, and C. What was the triggering point in that, so that the next time I know not to do it? For example, the first time I had Peter, I cut his apple. That was disastrous. I came from a point of going, okay, he hasn't eaten much. I'd really like him to eat because, his energy is depleting. I'm going to cut his apple up for him just to make it easier for him, right? So that he can just pick it up and, take little bites at a time while engaging in an activity. Well, I did not know that, his item of food needed to be in its whole. And so I was like, oh my God, I made your child cry today. I'm so sorry. I do not know what it was that made him cry, and I'm unable to extract that information. Could you please fill in the gap for me?
Right. And I think it was his teacher actually that said, maybe it was because you cut his apple. I think that's who it was at that time.
No, actually it was you.
Was it me?
Yeah.
Oh.
And we're like, all we did was cut his apple. And you're like, well,
well, that's the problem.
Well, that's the problem. And you're like, what?
And that was important. I didn't get upset because you don't know what you don't know. Right. And because you came to me and said, oh my goodness, can you tell me what might've happened? It was solved. Like it's going to happen that you're going to do something and it's going to be triggering and you're not going to know. Like that comes with experience working with the person. So I would give that person the idea that I am open to hearing that information, because they're going to be less reluctant to say, oh, I'm not sure if the parent's going to be really upset with me if I say, look, if there is a situation that is challenging, let's talk about it and discuss strategies that can help in future situations, right? People are not perfect. They're not going to know everything no matter how much information you share, because every situation's a little bit different. You can't possibly provide someone with all of the potential scenarios that are going to happen in a day, right? I would also have them do notes or verbal debriefs for what the day looked like, right? Especially Peter's non-speaking. He can't tell me what happened. So I'm going to rely on that person to share that information with me, in whichever way sort of works for them or works for us. And I think open communication is going to be able to provide an opportunity to regularly check in and make sure it's working for both parties.
Yes, it is absolutely necessary, because it keeps you on track of whether this is going to work for you long term, and it also gives the respite provider as a reference point. I always say write things down, right? Because you go, what did I do on that day when I kind of ran into the situation and I did something, right? And it gives you the opportunity to reflect on what strategies were really effective. So I would suggest just a quick note to say, this is what I did. And it also is an opportunity for you to, if necessary in circumstances, collect data in case you need to find, I've noticed that, Peter hasn't been eating as much, and there's been a decline. Oh, when did it start? It started over here, I noticed. So having a written form also provides you the opportunity to collect data and, in case of a situation arises.
Yeah, and it's so important when the autistic individual is non-speaking and can't advocate for themselves. You really are, there's a lot of trust being put into this person.
Yes, it is. So do your due diligence. It is extremely important because this is a vulnerable person that is being that you're entrusting somebody that you know very little about to provide, care for your child or for the adult in your life that is unable to do so effectively for themselves. And, they're in a vulnerable position. So please do your due diligence.
And I know I'm making it sound like this is horrific. And I do respect that this is sometimes really necessary for caregivers. We don't want to see caregivers burning themselves out, right? Just because it wasn't for me doesn't mean it's not for everyone.
It wasn't for you till I came along.
I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, you built up the trust before I needed a respite worker, right? So I got to know you in different circumstances, and I got to see very quickly that you became Peter's most favorite person in the entire world, right? So that was kind of easy when you approached me and said, "Hey, I also do respite care. Would you, I'd like to take your child here and there and wherever." And I'm like, "Take him, gone, bye."
Yeah.
But it was a little bit harder for you when you decided to also say, "Hey, I feel like it's unfair for me to take Peter all these places and not take your other son and also give you a break." Alex it took you a little while to get to know Alex and get to know, because he's so different. They're so very, very different.
Yes, they are. And, but it took time, and it took, doing that due diligence and building those relationships and rapport in order to find a good balance. So I always balanced it out as one activity day for Peter, one activity day for Alex, right? And I made sure that they were both able to access what they needed to from the activity I selected for them. And more specifically for Alex, I would always sit down and plan it out for him. Peter was like, "Oh, we're going here? I'm chill. Like it's an outing. Like I'm in." Alex, it took a little bit more of, "Hey, this is a thought. This is an idea. What do you think about it? Is that something that would, interest you? And if not, then is there something else that you would like to do that, maybe I could also find something that Peter would be able to engage with." So yeah, it did. And your kids have been everywhere with me.
And I'm very happy to have had someone who could take them everywhere, because being autistic myself, trying to regulate myself in these places and help regulate two other individuals is a tremendous amount, and sometimes just not possible for me.
Yeah. Well, it is my honor. And for those who do provide respite work, this is a place of, of honor for you. So treat it with the utmost respect. And thank you. Thank you for giving me that privilege. I truly appreciate it.
I appreciate that you're a trustworthy person that can do that for me.
Now that we've talked about respite, I think when we reach a certain age, we also have to consider alternative living.
That is, that is another topic that it's really pertinent, especially right now in the world right now with housing crisis. So,
and I also think it is an important subject to discuss, because we're not getting younger. And we've got to bridge that gap a lot sooner, and it takes a lot longer than most other people. So
Your kids are going to grow up eventually, and you need to think about long term.
Yes.
And I know that's an uncomfortable subject, but it's a really important one. So our next episode will be about alternative living.
Yep. Until then, take care and have a great day.
And we'll see you then.
Thanks for tuning in. If you know someone who might find this episode helpful, feel free to share. Also, check out our website and socials linked in the description.